without further ado, I will entertain the group number 2 and allow you to do introductions of your team.
Good morning. I am Amy Ahrens, and I'm the manager at the Workforce Center at Job Service. I was interested in the team getting beef into the local Bismarck public schools because of my experience in trying to get beef into my home. I had originally lived in the Twin Cities, and we did not have access to local beef. When we moved to North Dakota and started our family, I wanted local beef in my home. It took a few years to find a local rancher that would sell us local beef every year. With our initial contacts, either they did not sell locally or would not have consistent beef that we could count on year after year. We eventually found someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew a rancher who we could get on their list for beef every year. The butcher that they have used over the years has changed. And sometimes we've had to drive quite a distance to pick up the beef. But I know I'm getting local beef that is processed in a local facility every year.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Destiny Vogt. I am a retail manager at Gate City Bank. I come from a ranching family and a ranching community located near Halliday, North Dakota. So I'm passionate about this project, not only because my parents are ranchers and farmers, but additionally, I have children entering the Bismarck public school system. So I know from personal experience the importance of locally raised beef, and I'm passionate about getting more of that and more locally produced North Dakota products into our schools.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Fralick, and I am the Ag Credit Analyst Assistant Manager at First International Bank and Trust. I grew up on a small hobby farm in central and western North Dakota, and I also helped with my family's extended family's cow-calf operation growing up. I was also heavily involved with 4-H and showed registered Red Angus cattle. And so because of my background and my passion with cattle is why I wanted to be a part of this group and supporting and promoting local beef in our local schools.
Salutations and greetings. My name is Mackenzie Smith. I'm with Comfort Inn and Suites in Mandan, where I'm the Director of Sales. I am excited about local beef in local schools because I believe that a community should help each other and buy local whenever possible.
Hello, my name is Nicole Gagner. I am a teaching artist, so kind of the odd one out in the beef group maybe. But I've actually been interested in local food since I took a semester off in college and did something called WWOOFing, Willing Workers on Organic Farms, and I've been really passionate about local food. Ever since then, I serve as a board member on our Bismarck-Mandan, the local farmers market board, which doesn't sound like it's complementary to being an artist and small business owner, but they all go together.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Ray Gunn. I'm with United Tribes Technical College as their Human Resources Director. And I chose to be a part of this team because it sparked interest on local beef and how to obtain it just, within homes like my team had mentioned, and especially in schools. I had 3 children who went through the school, and I know there were some complaints about the lunches. Crying after school, they're hungry. So I'm very familiar with how it impacts children, and so it just sparked a lot of interest, and I hope to continue to learn more through my team as they are more experienced in the field.
Okay.
So our original goal was to bring local North Dakota raised beef into the Bismarck public school system, ensuring our students are getting trusted quality product while also supporting North Dakota economy by bringing business to local ranchers and local meat processing facilities. Initial research. initial search of online articles about the local beef going into North Dakota schools was exciting and promising about the possibility of us getting a local beef into the Bismarck Public Schools. In this initial article here, John Rosewich, who operates South 40 Beef in Mott, partnered with the Independent Beef Association of North Dakota, who is also, that is known as IBAN, where he is also a member. He sold beef below cost to IBAN, who then donated the beef to 12 different schools along the I-94 in North Dakota Beef to School program. This program was started in 2021, and the hope was that schools who received the donated beef would like the local beef and would then purchase local beef instead of commodity. The article was published on the same day Fargo Public Schools cooked 922 pounds of beef they received from South 40 Beef. The secondary schools had taco grinders, and the elementary schools had taco in a bag. Cooks noticed that the beef had a better aroma when it was cooked, and that the yield was higher with the local beef versus cooking with the commodity beef. It was noticeable that once it was made into the taco meat, there wasn't a noticeable flavor difference, and the students didn't seem to notice the difference between the local or the commodity. Bismarck High School was another school who received 100 pounds of donated beef from the North Dakota Beef to School program. This donation covered one meal at the high school where the students had a meat lunch. As you can see here, it looks like a very delicious school lunch meal. Bismarck would not have been able to do tacos, however, like Fargo did, because it takes over 100 pounds of beef on taco day. Kidder County purchased 150 pounds of beef from Bowden Meat Processing Co-op, and IBAN brought the beef just under an hour drive from the co-op to the Kidder County Schools District. Their head cook, Sue Heron, made the beef into meatloaf for the kindergartners through high schoolers for lunch. She stated those farm kids noticed how much better the meatloaf tasted and that they knew that it was North Dakota beef. The article also quotes Deb Edmond from the Department of Public Instruction that schools have a budget and are able to purchase local beef as long as it comes from a state inspected or a USDA federally inspected plant. Rosewich found that during the North Dakota Beef to School program, the 12 schools who had received the beef did not have knowledge or awareness that local beef could be brought in and cooked in the school lunches. It was a consensus with the articles that local beef smelled better, it had a better color while cooking the commodity beef. Even though the local beef would cost more, the higher yield, the local beef would offset the cost of the commodity, which is important when beef is the most expensive item the school lunch program purchases. All looked very promising that we could get local beef into the Bismarck Public Schools. But as I stated earlier, our original goal was to get local beef into the Bismarck Public Schools. And even though the initial information was promising, Destiny will go over more of the research and obstacles we learned on why local beef is not currently in the Bismarck Public Schools.
So what we learned was, first of all, a lot. We met with a lot of people, we had a lot of meetings, and we really did learn a lot. Even myself, coming from an agricultural beef family, I was blown away by some of the things that we learned because I am a class B'er, so I don't know. I didn't have these big schools that my kids are going to have. So as mentioned, our initial goal was to get locally produced beef into Bismarck Public Schools. I think it's important to know that we are fortunate to have many individuals in our communities that really do truly care about this initiative. And we found that this was a topic that's actually been a discussion in our state for quite some time, especially here in our community. In doing our research, we were fortunate to find those people that could be a great source of information for us. We learned that Bismarck Public Schools gets entitlement money, and that is what is used to order food. Amy talked a little bit about this too, but that food is put into 3 buckets of food products, with beef falling into the commodities category. With this type of funding also, you either use it or you lose it. So that creates the challenges for our schools. North Dakota receives about $5 to $6 million in commodity entitlement money. There are over 200 commodity foods that can be ordered, plus processed foods like pizza and chicken nuggets. And while I know my kids would live on those two things, that's not what I allow. 400,000 pounds of ground beef are ordered each year for North Dakota schools. And at $4 a pound, that is about 1.6 million that could have been spent on local beef. Cash in lieu was a term that we learned. This is a new term to us. Cash in lieu would offer schools the opportunity to decide what to buy instead of the actual commodity food. This would allow them the opportunity to purchase local beef and support local ranchers. It would also save the state money on warehousing and transportation to have the commodities stored and sent out from Fargo. So that money could be spent on actual food instead of just aging and trucking the commodity food. So what is being done? First of all, I talked about community leaders who care, but local ranchers also do care. As I've been working on this project, I've been talking and interviewing my mom, and I'm like, I need cow pictures. She's like, okay, no questions asked. She sent them, but local ranchers, they care. They want their locally raised beef in schools. They're proud of their product, and they would love to see it more available in our North Dakota schools. Additionally, more local beef in schools would then in turn support those ranchers who have certainly seen challenges within the last couple of years with severe droughts, even the last several weeks with historic spring storms. I know many ranchers personally who lost many calves during that time. Leaders within our communities and within our school systems, they're working hard to move forward with this initiative. They know the importance of getting local beef into the schools, and they really are passionate about it, but that's our purpose now, is call to action, getting that information out there. We also learned that some local schools are offering butchering or meat processing classes, which I thought was cool. I probably wouldn't take that class, but it's cool for other people. And this is to promote the idea of local North Dakota food processing. So this is a great opportunity to get students that experience in working with beef to hopefully create continued interest within the beef industry. Sam will tell us shortly, but we do have a shortage of meat processing plants within the state, so it's very important to continue to get our youth involved and interested in this area. So what can we do? North Dakota students and parents should support this movement because we are an agricultural state. When students know that their community grows high quality food, this increases their pride and they have the reassurance that their community cares about them. So similar to the first group who talked, it's your community does care and we do want to help you. We as North Dakota citizens should be proud that our state is an agricultural leader in the nation. We need to teach our kids to wonder where their food comes from. We want them to be engaged in the agriculture industry and consider careers within that industry so we can maintain that strong agricultural stance in our nation. And put our state on your plate is just a great and catchy way to remind us all to support our local farmers and ranchers. The North Dakota Department of Agriculture and North Dakota Department of Public Instruction work together on the Farm to School program, and I'm happy to share that this is their brand new logo.
So after meeting with Bismarck Public Schools and North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, and then learning that schools have this entitlement money from the federal government that has to be used or they lose it, we started thinking that we may be biting off more than we could chew. We started to learn and realize that the federal laws would need to be changed to allow schools to either use the entitlements differently or take cash in lieu of entitlements to make it easier for our schools to buy beef locally. This took a lot of wind out of our sails, and we then started questioning ourselves and asking, what do we do now? And with that, while I was attending the KFYR Agri International, I then walked by the North Dakota Beef Commission booth, and I knew they could provide some great information or point us in a direction of where we could possibly go next. I learned a lot that day from talking with Nicole Warner of the Beef Commission, who is with us here in the back today, and brought that information back to this team. we decided to proceed with asking the Beef Commission to be our project partner and set up a meeting with Nicole. Some of the things that we learned were that those stories in recent news were not an actual full program of ranchers selling beef to schools, but one-time donations on specific days. And there will be a lot of hurdles creating a full program to sell to the schools. Nicole was able to provide us a lot of information and beef data, including averages for North Dakota. So cull cows, which are cows that will no longer be used in production on a farm or ranch, provide the most ground beef without sacrificing high dollar cuts of meat. Usually cull cows will only be used for the ground beef within the supply chain, as their meat does not have the same muscle to fat composition of a younger animal that is on a high protein diet. Keeping that in mind, the average cull cow in North Dakota weighs approximately 1,300 pounds, which can then be converted into 450 pounds of boneless beef. With information provided by Bismarck Public Schools, it takes approximately 100 pounds of ground beef to feed just one middle or high school within the district for one meal. This means that one beef meal requires approximately 600 pounds of ground beef to feed all the middle and high schools for that one meal. This equates to 1.33 cows for just one meal during the week. This does not include the 16 elementary schools, an alternative high school, and an early childhood education program within the district. So on an annual basis, Bismarck Public Schools orders approximately 20,000 pounds of ground beef for those middle and high schools. This then equals, when you do the math, 45 cull cows needed for just 1 year to supply only the middle and high schools in the district. That's quite a few. So knowing that Bismarck Public Schools alone needs 45 cows for 1 year to feed 6 middle and high schools, there would need to be a processing and packaging facility that can harvest and process about 2 cows per week to properly supply Bismarck Public Schools. With that being said, as we learned earlier, that meat has to come from a state or federally inspected processing or packaging facility. And currently there's only 18 of those in the state, and only 2 of them are within 30 miles of Bismarck. These facilities likely have the capacity to process around 10 animals in 1 week. And right now, to get on a processing schedule for these facilities is quite hard, as they're already booking spots out over 1 year in advance. There are many other processing facilities within the state that are smaller and not inspected. So that brings up 2 hurdles for us that are bigger than what we could accomplish within the scope of our project. 1, how do we get smaller non-inspected facilities to be inspected? And 2, how do we increase the processing and packaging capacity within the state of North Dakota? Additionally, setting up a program also sets up a little bit of an economic and profitability issue for the producers. It currently costs on average $450 for an animal for just processing and disposal. This is the cost just to get a carcass hanging in the cooler. It then costs an additional $450 to process the carcass and grind it into ground beef. So if you're staying with me, that's $1 per pound just to grind the carcass. So right off the bat, it costs the rancher $900 to just turn a cull cow into 450 pounds of ground beef, which is a cost of $2 per pound. The average price of ground beef right now is currently around $4 per pound. So then the rancher is only netting a $2 per pound profit, or $900 per cow. If the rancher instead took that cow to the local auction barn to sell as a live animal, they would receive, right in today's environment, about 95 cents per pound. And on a 1,300 pound animal, that's approximately $1,235 per cow, which is $300 more. So now I'm not saying that ranchers will not participate in a program, as many do support serving local products in the schools, but they're likely to only supply or contribute 1 to 2 animals at a time and not a large quantity at one time. So with that, that would mean just to supply Bismarck Public Schools, 30 to 40 ranchers would be needed. So learning all of this, we needed to pivot. All right. So with the hurdles that Sam has expanded on, we decided that it was best to change our targets. We as a group decided to become advocates for local beef and to educate the parents. We wanted to raise awareness on the importance of protein in a child's diets. We want to provide information that would motivate and encourage parents to not only get them to think about where their beef is coming from, but what their children are eating, how their daily diets could help improve their energy through the day and their growth. We want to provide parents with the tools and recipes needed to create tastier lunches while their children are at school. Because as any parent knows, kids are extremely picky. Now, for those who like to celebrate random holidays, May is National Beef Month, and we want to celebrate that because North Dakota is so rich in agriculture. We did find some cool facts on ndbeef.org for last year, 2021. North Dakota has 1.95 million heads of cattle. That's about a 2.5 to 1 cattle to human ratio. We're kind of outnumbered, guys. 794 million pounds of beef is produced each year in North Dakota. North Dakota is only ranked number 9 in the US for number of cows in the state. Morton County is the leading county for total head of cattle. And when an animal is processed, 99% of the animal is used. Ranchers really don't want to waste any bit of the cow. Then who here is a basketball fan? By the hands. Yeah. Did you know one cow hive can make 11 basketballs? I think that'll last a high school team for a year. And then the most interesting fact is that the average American will eat 114 hamburgers a year. That's a lot. So we do have some statistics on protein. Did you know that 5 to 20% of a child's daily intake should be protein? This allows them to develop the muscle mass and the strength needed in their adolescent years. It also provides energy to keep kids playing their favorite games, such as basketball, soccer, or even ballet. Beef especially provides 9 essential amino acids that our bodies do not produce naturally. Don't ask me to pronounce them, I will get tongue-tied. These facts are just a fraction of the information that we will be using to educate parents. Nicole will go into more detail about how we will get them this essential information.
All right, so we have given you guys a lot of information that we have learned. And like I said, we're all people that are really interested in local foods, in local beefs, and there was a lot that we didn't know. So we decided that one of the best ways to consolidate some of these things that we have learned and get them out there was just something like a basic flyer. It's hard to, grab people on the street and just tell them all of these statistics that we've learned. Did you know that there are 11 basketballs per cowhide? You can't just tell people that randomly. This is obviously just a sample, as it says sample big, because we want some of your feedback also on what would you want to learn if one of these flyers was coming home in your kid's backpack. We'll talk about, that's one of the places that we want to share these flyers. What would you want to learn if you found this flyer at your local farmer's market, something like that? So that is just an example. And really, there are so many resources out there already. We want to connect you guys to some resources, and we want to share some of the things that are already out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We are not the first people that are excited about local beef. Other people are excited about it too. So we want to help connect all of those things, help people learn about some of that information that's already out there. Some of the things that we thought people might be interested in were some of those really interesting stats of how many cows are in the state, per capita, some of the amazing recipes that are already online and how you can get some of these really healthy protein options in your diet, and just some of those things that will help draw people in. So like I said, one of the places that we want to share that is the Friday flyer. If you are a parent, that is something that goes home with kids anyhow. And so even if we're not getting local beef into schools just yet, we can help parents know where to find local beef, how to use it in ways the kids will eat it. Some of those encouraging things. Other places that we are planning on sharing some of this information. We have a great local farmers market that, like I said, I'm on the board of, but they already offer weekly booths for nonprofits and people that are doing educational outreach like this. And I mean, what better place to find people that are interested in local food than our farmers market? And sometimes there is local beef there, which is awesome. And also same for our local food co-op. Those are the people that are already interested in shopping local and like us might kind of think that they know where to get local food. And then there's a lot more information that we can share with them that they might be surprised of, like, oh, you know, some of these things aren't getting to our table as quickly as we think that they are. We're also really excited about being at the Chamber EDC Ag Panel event and, you know, listening and learning everything that other people have to say about, you know, these really important local food systems, and same with the North Dakota Local Food Alliance and all of the exciting stuff that's going on there. Just really on our part, a lot of listening and learning and then sharing out all of that information that's been happening. Because people that like local food. So kind of connecting people who love local art, love local culture. They're going to be the same people that are already interested in local food systems. And we have the farm to school coordinator. She works with our Bismarck-Mandan already, and she is already working on getting local food into schools right now, mostly with local veggies. So it kind of seems like a natural step to help them get at least some education about local beef to schools. And we just want to, you know, grow those connections further. There's also great places to share information online. There's the North Dakota Farm to Table group, the Bisman Eats, and the North Dakota Eats group. Those are a little bit, the last two are a little bit more restaurant focused, but again, those are the people that are already interested in eating local, supporting local businesses. And so that's a great place for us to get some more of our information that we've collected out to these people that might already be a little bit more interested in that. So we got some of our information from cdc.gov, from northdakotabeef.org, KidWare News, and agupdate.com. And then we just want to thank the North Dakota Beef Commission, Irons Ranch, Deb Eglund, who wasn't able to be here in person today. Oh, she is. Oh, I'm thanks, Deb. Bismarck Public Schools and the High Plains Reader for all of the information that we were able to use. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions for our group. Yeah.
What were some of the barriers to entry on the USDA or state inspected facilities? And are there ones that are local that could be enhanced or modified in some way to get to that level?
Well, I think our initial thought, I'll let Sam talk after because this is her section, but just the quantity of them based on, you saw the cow to human ratio here, and then you go to the processing facilities and it's even less and less.
So to get food into the schools, it has to be state or federally inspected. They have to have is it retail license, I believe, to be able to do that. Now there are a ton of facilities, small facilities that are retail exempt within the state, and so they're not inspected. So what that means for like you as an individual, you're buying the animal from me, I'm feeding the animal, I'm lining up like when it's gonna go to the processing facility, but you're paying me, you're not paying that like processor to just buy it out of his cooler, you're paying me. So that's the difference. So that requires special licensing, so more money on those processors side. And then for some of them, they don't have the labor market to be able to process more meat than just like you know, the people they already have, because they're likely doing the slaughtering of the animal, letting it hang for 14 to 21 days, and then 21 days later doing the processing on the animal. Plus, these processing facilities are also the ones that do, you know, we have a lot of deer hunters in North Dakota. So they're doing, you know, your guys' deer. There are some out in the east side of the state in Enderlin that also process pork. So there's just like everything, there's a labor shortage, and so that's where those kind of shortfalls and pitfalls come into logistically.
So question from our audience online. In terms of sustainability, how do you see your group's involvement moving forward? And when do you feel you'll hand it off and to whom?
So we don't necessarily have a ongoing thing as a group here. As I mentioned in my section of the presentation, we have a lot of community leaders, people that are involved with our school. Deb Eglin is one of them. They are working on this all of the time. So this is part of their job. This is already built into what they're doing, because fortunately for us, we found people that are already passionate about this. So our goal when we decided to kind of pivot, because when we, I think, left, we're like, yeah, we're going to get North Dakota beef in schools by like August. And then that was my goal, because my daughter starts kindergarten. And then we had some conferences and some meetings, and we're like, okay, so that's not going to happen. But we decided to pivot to now our group. What we're committed to is just getting this information out to people. Do parents know? And as I mentioned, I am from a small community. I know my parents are ranchers. Do people who are born and raised in Bismarck, do they know? Do you know what I mean? They don't have access to that. So I truthfully am not sure. So our goal was just to get the information out there. Our hope is in the fall to, like Nicole was talking about, get a Friday flyer into their school flyers, and then also potentially attend some events. So Nicole's in with the Bismarck. It is really helpful for us because we could potentially go and have a booth and just raise awareness. So sustainability, we have people in our community who are kind of fortunately already working towards our goal. Our goal is more so getting the information out there, and we don't have an end date that will stop doing it. I've been an advocate for beef my whole life, so I will continue to do that, but we will be working and getting information out there as we can as a group as well.
The goal to speak and raise awareness about protein or beef in particular, and if it's in protein as a whole, or do you have any thoughts of including anything on local plant-based protein options or other
It is
information?
beef, because beef is the only meat protein source out there that has those 9 essential amino acids that our bodies cannot produce. Plant-based proteins don't have those, all of 9 of those. They may have a few of them, just depending, but not all 9. So it is focused on beef.
And actually, if we had taken on getting plant proteins into schools, we would have encountered a lot of these same problems of a lot of the producers of the proteins that are plant-based here aren't producing it for consumption here, and it's not being processed here. So I love your question, and I absolutely am excited about that idea. Not with this project. It's just opening a whole other can of worms of a lot of the same issues.
If I understand correctly, a local rancher could not donate beef to his local school unless that beef was inspected. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
It
that would
has to
be
be
the first-
processed at a state or USDA federally inspected. They could certainly, get in contact with the schools and say, I'd really like to donate this, I'm gonna process it. They should go to like the the Department of Ag's website, and they can get a list of the processing facilities. But then, for the rancher, they're taking on all the costs. It just has to go through one of those 18 facilities.
So looking into the future, say that we have a bunch of local cattle right from like Morton County going to the closest processing plant and then making its way to the schools. Wouldn't there be like a significant cost savings in terms of like transportation or like
Yeah.
freight costs? Like,
If it was local, but we only have 2 facilities within 30 miles of Bismarck-Mandan.
just with like the way that like freight is these days, and I mean, currently the cost of gas prices, was there any like percentage wise that we potentially could save doing it that way?
We did not get that far into like doing that kind of math and data, just because we knew right there that honestly, like to solve those logistics, North Dakota needs to be open to having a large packaging facility that is doing hundreds of cattle a day. And there has been opposition within the state to do that.
Can I answer some questions?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I am this Deb from DPI. And my real job is taking care of school lunch. My customers call me all day with their problems and I have to inspect these for my customers. Anyway, but I love farm to school, and USDA, where we get our money from, has a corporate priority for farm to school. It's not just to get local foods into schools. It's also to get kids interested in ag careers. And so what is really, really great is that when you talk about get more processing plants, what happened down in Mott is that when this guy who was a rich guy in New York and came here and bought a ranch, but he would have to take his cows way down south to get them processed, thought we should get them processed here. And so he opened the meat processing plant in Mott. And I realize not everyone can do that. Like I have a friend who owns a railroad, and if she wants something, she opens it. But he did. He opened a processing plant in Mott. And then the school in Elgin started a butchering class. So now kids in our small town, at least that small town, we have tons of small towns, because I have some schools who only have 3 kids or 12 or 36. Those kids want to stay in those towns, but there's no jobs for them. So what's really good is if we could get more processing plants going, we could provide more of this local meat to the schools. And we could also provide jobs to keep kids in the small towns because they like it. Not everybody wants to go to college in some bigger town and move away. They just don't. So I think USDA will keep the priority going. We have way more kids signing up now in career and tech ed for ag classes than we did just a few years ago. So I think we got to just, keep the message going all the time. And one other thing I wanted to say is, that little tiny bit of money, like 1.6 million to spend on beef commodity, they spend 8.64 million on beef just to have a beef meal once a week, not just not the commodity beef we give them, but they buy beef all the time because our commodity money we give them is only meant to be 15% of their food budget. They use real live money. And when you talked about that cash in lieu, going back to the question over there, if they actually had cash in lieu of commodities, they could spend all that cash on food, and we have Buy American, so it still has to come from American farmers, but they would not pay the $800,000 we pay to age that food in the commodity warehouse before we send it out. They could spend that money more on food. Better food, maybe, I don't know. But there's 200 commodities. It seems kind of silly this day and age to get them all stuck in one spot, age them a little bit, then flip them out.
So just for, to go off of, the South 40 being built, the infrastructure and the cost to build a 10-head a week facility is $3 million.
USDA has lots of grants out for that, but John told me they're really hard to get, really hard to get.
Grant.
So similar to our project, special consideration always needs to be granted to the nuts and bolts. In your case, it sounds like bureaucracy and logistics are holding back the maximum potential of the project. If there were an avenue to remove some of the proverbial red tape from getting these small processing shops approved by the USDA, would the total capacity of all of our processing facilities meet the demand of the project that you guys are proposing?
No, and I don't know the entire capacity. Nicole, I think, can answer that.
Nicole with the Beef Commission. So the problem that the small packing plants have, especially our custom exempt, is space. So they were built for a 10-head per week because 5 years ago, we didn't have the big rush to get everybody to purchase and to process their own beef and try and sell it off of the ranch. And so to expand, to go from a 10-head a week, which, let's be honest, that's peanuts, guys. That's not a lot. They're helping the rancher that just wants to fill their own freezer or give mom and dad a half or a quarter or whatever they're doing. But they need to probably have another $1.5 to $3 million to expand. Now, that's talking floor space, it's talking hanging space. All of those carcasses have to hang between 14 and 21 days for it to be suitable, that get the flavor that we want as consumers. And so that's cooler space. So that's a cooler that has to be kept at 32 degrees just for an animal to hang there for 3 weeks. So that's a lot of space and cement that costs a lot. And so that's their hurdle. They could get inspectors. To get USDA inspected is not hard. We would have to have a few more of them come to the state, which is not hard either, because there's a lot of kids coming out of college that would love to be a USDA inspector. That's not a problem. It's their space, their capacity that they have to increase in order to be able to reach our demand that we need.
Are any of the funding programs that you guys currently have involved with making expansion a little bit more of a realistic prospect?
At the Beef Commission?
Yeah.
So the Beef Commission is a special fund state agency that deals with the beef checkoff. So when every time an animal is sold in North Dakota, we collect $2. Those $2 can only be used for promotion, research, and education of beef and beef products. Okay. We like to say, for simplicity terms, we're the beef is what's for dinner people. So we're the ones that run that brand in North Dakota. So no, we can't help with any of those things. The Department of Ag, USDA, those are the ones where you're going to get funds for increase in packing plants. We can't invest our dollars into brick and mortar.
We do have a question up here online, right?
Yes,
We
yep,
gotta
this
get
is-
to, because we don't have much time left.
From our online audience. Is a mobile butcher / processor an eligible option? In Utah, they are USDA approved processors and provides sterility testing. Not sure if this is the same in North Dakota.
Probably not.
They're not just in Utah, there's one in New Mexico.
I mean, they have to follow state laws, and I don't know if our state laws allow that.
And I would just say one other thing to wrap this up is kind of to Graham's question. We toured Schweitzer's Meats one of our first days in this leadership class, and we saw firsthand how busy they were. And I mean, he told us that he was already almost filled for the next calendar year. And so when we were there, I did pose that question to him, have you seen a huge increase since COVID? And he said, absolutely. Now everyone is they want to buy local. That's also kind of trending. It's cool. The kids are doing. But we saw how busy they were, and he could probably work 24/7 in there. But again, it comes down to the manpower. So that was him and his son or sons.
Yeah.
But
And they do 10 a week,
10 a week.
9 to 10.
And that's
depending on
with
the
a small crew. So that's gonna play a huge factor in that.
Wow. One last question?
It's kind of a question. There is many schools have nutritionists in classrooms, and that might be another opportunity. And I wish you luck. This is great. I would include trivia because you want the students to kind of engage with it too.
Adults need trivia too. to
Yeah.
get-
All right, thank you guys. Thank you.